Good evening, everyone. If you could take a seat, we're going to get this show on the road. Thank you all for being here this evening. I know everybody has lots of things to do during a busy holiday season, but the care and housing of our veterans is obviously a very important issue, both locally and nationwide. My name is Ted Winter from the Santa Monica City Council, and I'm going to deliver a brief and somewhat dry preamble to this evening's events, which you'll have to endure, and then we'll hand it over to the more interesting part of the show. Tonight's public forum is hosted by the Department of Veteran Affairs in partnership with Veterans Advocacy. The City of Santa Monica is happy to provide space to have a meaningful dialogue about the draft master plan for the West LA VA campus before the public comment phase ends on Monday, December 7th. That's next week, for those of you who aren't paying attention. Since 2010, the VA has been striving towards the goal of ending veteran homelessness by the end of 2015. Veteran homelessness has decreased 33% across the nation since 2010. In the LA continuum of care, veteran homelessness has decreased 19%, with 4,016 homeless vets identified in the 2015 homeless count. In Santa Monica, veterans are a small but meaningful portion of the local homeless population, representing 14% of the city's most vulnerable homeless individuals. The draft master plan is the broad framework for the development of the 387-acre campus in West LA. The city appreciates the opportunity to provide comments on the plan, as the city wants to ensure that the West LA VA campus not only benefits veterans and their families, but prioritizes veterans who are the most vulnerable and chronically homeless. The city has a long history of supporting efforts to address veteran homelessness through advocacy and action. The city continues to advocate for low-barrier, permanent supportive housing on the VA campus that is accessible and prioritized for the most chronic and vulnerable veterans, especially those with co-occurring mental health and substance use disorders. Additionally, the city supports current legislation HUI 15AL7, there'll be a quiz later on that, please memorize that, proposed by Senators Feinstein and Boxer and Representative Liu, that will allow the VA to enter into enhanced use lease agreements to develop permanent housing for homeless vets on the campus. And now it's my pleasure to introduce from the Veterans Administration, Heidi Marston.
Thank you. I'm going to just take a few minutes and go over some slides. It's the slide deck that you have with you, and just talk about the master plan on a high level. Is it okay if I stand out here? And give you, again, a high-level overview, and then we're going to kind of open it up to questions and discussion after that. Again, my name is Heidi Marston. I'm here with VA. Myself and Vince Kane were both sent out to VA specifically by the Secretary to work on the plan. This is something that's very important. It's a priority to the administration, so they want to make sure that we're putting all of our resources to it. So as you know, we have a master planning process that's underway right now. The master planner, the urban developer, came in this summer and put together a master plan for us. It's about 900 pages long, so it's a pretty long read, but it's a comprehensive outline of what the vision of the campus is. As you all know, this land in Los Angeles was donated to veterans, deeded to veterans in 1888, and the purpose of the land is to serve veterans. So over time, the condition of the campus has been falling apart. It's been in disrepair. So now this is VA's way of going back and saying, let's reinvent this land, let's invigorate it, let's bring it up to speed and really make it a blueprint for what 21st century healthcare can look like. So that's kind of where we're going. The first thing that I want to talk about is the contents of a master plan and what it is and what it isn't. And I think this is important for us in guiding our discussion tonight. So a master plan is a blueprint for what the campus looks like. Generally, a master plan spans about a 1 to 20 year period. That's very common, and it's a living, breathing document that's going to change and adjust as the needs of the community adjust. When the master plan was developed, it was developed, as Ted said, with 3 primary demographics in mind. It's our chronically homeless veterans, our aging veterans who are also homeless, and our women veterans with dependents. Those are the 3 targets that we went for right away because they're the most vulnerable. So again, physical outline of the campus, and after this period that we're in right now, that's when we're going to move forward and start talking about the services on the campus. So back in June when the master planner came, they did all their work over the summer, and in October they sent the draft master plan to the secretary. And he said, I think this is a good start, but I think we can do better. He wanted to see that we are really engaging in the community because this is such an important process. That we're not only listening to the voices of the veterans and what they want on the campus, but also the community and how can the community be embraced in this as well. Understanding that VA can't do this alone. So we have talked to many of the neighbors, we've talked to veterans groups, and in partnership with Vets Advocacy, we've reached so many people in this 45-day comment period. Just kind of spreading the word and answering questions about what the master plan is. And we've received some really positive feedback. We have a lot of support right now, especially from Congress. And I would say that Congress is also in the same boat where they actually see this as a pilot, where we can say, here's what we did in LA, and let's make this work in the rest of the country. It should really be the vision of what a VA campus looks like. We want to make it a home and a place where all veterans feel like they can come. So after this 45-day comment period, again, it ends on December 7th. So I highly encourage all of you to go in, take a look at the plan, even a brief overview, and write up what you want to see. Write up what you like, write up what you don't like. Talk about the services you want to see on the campus, because we're going to go through and incorporate all of those things and respond to all of those comments. So our goal is by January that we're going to come up with a draft master plan that is incorporating all these comments, that's showing the voice of the veteran, showing what the community wants. And the key here is in January, we'll submit a final, again, draft master plan. So think of it as always a draft. Just to sort of put this in context for you, by the year 2017, 10 million veterans are going to be over the age of 65. So we're really dealing with a chronically aging, homeless, chronically aging veteran. We see it nationally, but we see it especially in LA. Those needs are very different than the veterans who we see who are returning right now. So as those veterans age, they need more sustained care, they need care that's closer to the campus. But in 10 years, our need might change a little bit. Maybe we'll shift a focus to something else that's needed. So that's the whole idea, is to continue to talk to the community, what's working, what's not working, and always adjusting. After this final draft master plan goes in, then we're going to follow all of the NEPA procedures, the environmental assessment, the historic preservation assessment. As you may know, there are 7 historic sites on the campus, so VA plans to keep all of those and work with our community partners to restore those, and really bring the campus back to life and turn it into a community where veterans can come, they can bring their families, and they can see their friends and really feel safe and comfortable. I'm just going to skip over this slide because I think the next one goes into it a little bit more. So when the urban developer came into the campus, they split it into 4 zones, and I'm just going to go over those zones. So zone 1 is the bed tower. It's the south part of campus where most of the medical research is done right now. So it's the busy part of the campus, really. That's going to remain there. There are plans in the master plan to create a new bed tower eventually. That's further down the road, like 2022, but again, that is a part of this master plan. Zone 2 is our coordinated care. So this is where you're going to see things like a Veteran and Family Resource Center, employment and technical training. So the idea here is to take a campus that is not only state-of-the-art in healthcare for veterans, but really takes a holistic approach at veterans and addresses every need that they have. Because we know it's not just about going to the doctor, it's about how do I get a job, how do I deal with the situation with my family, and VA wants to be that resource for veterans. Zone 3, and this piece is really critical. This is veteran housing. So right now, as Ted said, there is a bill that is awaiting final votes, and this bill will allow us to bring back permanent housing onto the campus. They're called enhanced use leases, and just for a little bit of a context, I guess, LA is the only campus in the country that doesn't allow enhanced use leases right now. The reason for that is over time, as the land was mismanaged and it got into more disrepair, Congress said, hey, we don't like what you're doing on the campus. You're not using it for veterans how it was supposed to be. So we're going to take away that authority from you. But as the secretary has come, as we have new leadership in here and we're working together, now Congress is saying, okay, we can come back and explore this idea again because it really is about providing a home for our veterans, specifically our most needy and our most vulnerable. So we're really excited about that, and that's really going to bring life back to the campus. They estimated about 900 units initially is what we would need of permanent housing. Those numbers are based off of our PIT count. So how do we take those veterans who are on the streets right now, who need a place to go, again, most of them are over the age of 65, and say, maybe you're not ready for institutionalized care yet, but you need those wraparound services where you can walk across the street and your doctor's there for you. So that's sort of the concept behind these initial 900 units. And Zone 4, we're looking at sort of a recreational area. Again, this is all just in the works, and we're still reevaluating most of it, but the Japanese garden, the golf course, that's the north part of the campus that you see right now, but we're really looking at that area and keeping it as green space. And again, using it for these recreational ideas because we want to take that holistic approach to treating veterans. And then I'm just going to skip to this last slide. So right now is really the critical point for us where we are soliciting everybody's feedback. And we are asking that everyone who wants to goes into the Federal Register, submits your comments, and again, tell us what you like, tell us what you don't like, what you want to see, what you don't want to see. So we can look at it. We can really know that we have heard what everybody has to say. So I'm going to stop there. I know this was sort of a high-level, quick overview of it, but we really want to get to your questions and comments. And I'll just take a minute briefly and introduce everyone at the table. I know Ted introduced himself. Vince Kane is a special assistant to the secretary. He was detailed out here from Philly just to work on this exclusively, and he's really been the forerunner of this. So we're really thankful to have Vince here. And John Sharon is another one of our subject matter experts. He's on the vets advocacy side. He's a plaintiff partner, and again, really spearheading this effort in moving VA forward in this 21st century and bringing the community in with us. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to you guys to answer some questions and the audience to provide comments.
So please, sorry you were the first up, so evening.
My question is about the transportation.
Have you talked into the microphone? We are recording.
Thank you. My question is about the transportation infrastructure around the site, which is marked by the 405, which allows many cars to go in one direction but creates a lot of a barrier in the other direction. So if we have a medical institution there and we have another medical institution on the Westwood campus of UCLA, we have a lot of doctors and students and staff going back and forth there. It would really be good if there was a good route for those medical professionals to go back and forth between those campuses. At the moment, there's no other way than driving a car. If you wanted to ride a bike or walk, which is really walking distance, you would have to open a gate, which is a gate in the National Cemetery, which is not part of that process here, but really you should consider that and make it part of it. Not only for the doctors who go back and forth, but also for the veteran on a wheelchair who wants to go to the cinema in Westwood or wants to attend an evening class there. Thank you.
So great feedback, and that's the kind of feedback we're looking for in the comments regarding the master plan. I'll say two things about the transportation and the road systems, and one of them is related to the fact that the master plan process did include a transportation study. The study was delayed because it was thought to best do that study around traffic when UCLA was back and in full session to get a real sense of what the volume would be and how the changes that are being proposed would impact that volume. We don't have that report back yet. We expect it really in the coming days. We will be using that information to inform and update the plan so that traffic issues are addressed and that we are looking at the flow both into the campus and out of the campus, and that we're doing that in a way that connects the campus to the community, but also preserves the privacy and the safety of the veterans as they identify what they want and need to feel like that's their home. So that's one piece. The other piece I want to alert everybody to that's not in the plan and purposefully not in the plan but is being addressed, and that is the Purple Line, which is the transit authority and an opportunity to have a station on the VA campus. It wasn't in the plan because there were prior discussions, but there was never any formal agreements. As part of the master planning process, the Transportation Authority has reached out to us. We're now in discussions with them. Actually, my colleagues from the VA tonight are here, Mr. Paul Backerman and Teresa DiMaggio. They're working with us, and we will be in dialogue, and our intent is to update the plan with that information in there once it's finalized. So we are aware of these transportation issues. We are taking them into account, and we are continuing to look for your feedback on that topic.
Hi, my question relates to the issue of 900 permanent units, but that's not any of the transitional units that at least I've seen in other parts of the discussion about this facility. So how is that, and where is that, and who's building that, or who isn't building that?
So one of the things that's been pretty clear in the science and the literature of taking care of homelessness is that when we look at what works is permanent housing with the supports, whether that housing is project-based or scattered site. And so when you looked at the plan, it's really informed by that research and the work that's done, and the focus is on permanent housing. So tonight, when you saw the notion of 700 to 900 permanent housing units, that's what it's referring to. There currently is transitional housing on that campus. That will continue to remain, but I think as you see more and more permanent housing with wraparound services, how that transitional housing gets used to support, the rapid engagement of veterans, the rapid stabilization, and the movement forward will be titrated as we go forward. Right now, there's no plan to change that. We've been using transitional housing, and as there's been less demand for it, we've converted it to bridge housing so that there's that ability to immediately engage a veteran when they're on the streets, get them into a safe place, get the team working with them right away, have a roof over their head, meals, case managers, everybody working with them to connect them back to community. So what you'll be seeing, not only in VA, but outside of VA, is that type of movement. There will always be a balance, but in the end, we know that what ends homelessness is a home. You're supposed to be up here, boss. Todd? You're joining us up here. Wow.
Okay, my name is Ernest Cowell. I am the Vice President of Los Angeles National Cemetery Support Foundation and liaison with the National Cemetery. Addressing this gentleman's prior remarks about letting traffic go through the cemetery, we can't have the cemetery as a public highway. There are secondary roads that go slightly north of the cemetery that would access and do what the gentleman suggested, and they could use the Constitution entrance to the VA. My concerns are threefold, and I've been asked to address them. The one is the Red Cross. Since they are an integrated ally of the armed forces and the VA, are they going to be allowed to stay on the grounds? Second one is the ballpark. UCLA's ballpark is an excellent ballpark for use by the veterans, by UCLA, and by youth groups. So to take that away, I think would be a terrible thing, because intramural sports, with the growing population of homeless vets and so forth, they're going to need recreational facilities. And there's no bowling alley on the campus. You do have some beautiful tennis courts that we can take back from Brentwood School that we gave them a bad lease on, and track that's up there. But the ball diamond could be used for intramural sports for these veterans that are being housed in a numerous amount. The other thing is that we are concerned about is the columbarium for the cemetery, which will be on the VA grounds just north of Constitution on the freeway side. We have many, many, many calls. When is the columbarium going to be built? So forth and so on. Well, the oil rig has to be out of there. All the ancillary equipment to the oil equipment has to be out of there. And today when I went by, I see a large tent being erected back there. For what purpose, I don't know. But I do think that while you gentlemen are concerned with the VA, the homeless, and the medical side, this land adjacent to the freeway, north of Constitution, for 100,000 veterans to find a final resting place is important. This is the only veterans cemetery in the megalopolis of Los Angeles, or in Los Angeles County. The next ones are in Bakersfield, Riverside, and Point Loma. And I do think that you really should take a sharp look at expediting the start of that columbarium. And I know it will be in increments. However, there are a lot of people that are still vertical that would like to be in there horizontally. So,
We'd like to keep as many of you with us as long as we can. So
anyway,
let me
thank
try
you
to-
for your time, gentlemen.
Yeah. So there's a couple things I want to try to address there, and then make sure I've got time for everybody else. But you raise a great point, which is, and Heidi touched on this, is that when we think about this campus and we think about the master plan and the feedback now coming from you to the master plan, the intent at the end of this is to make sure that that home has something for every veteran. Those that will be living there, those that will be coming there for outpatient services, those that may be coming there just for special procedures, and we hope for the younger veterans, that those that may be coming there because there's services on that campus that they want and need that help them readjust back to the communities that they served. That's a big focus of this plan. We're not going to get into a lot of the details on the services tonight, but that's clearly the intent. With respect to UCLA and the other leases, they're being addressed as part of the settlement agreement that occurred back in January. They're being worked on. I can tell you we've been in discussions with UCLA. We've made it clear that for anyone to stay on the campus as we go forward, that they have to be focused primarily on the veteran, and that what they have to do meets the needs and the wants of the veterans. And so we've gotten feedback. I can tell you we've been with UCLA in discussions. They've acknowledged that there's opportunities for them to do more for the veteran population. They've been our partner as academic affiliates for 70 years. Working in the training of doctors is a key mission for us in VA and beneficial to the entire country. So we want to preserve that relationship, but we're clear, and UCLA has been clear, that does have to change, and it does have to be more veteran focused. And even the use of the stadium has to be more veteran-focused than what it's been. That will get announced. Secretary will be coming out here in the new calendar year to address the updates in the plan, to talk about where we are with those leases and a variety of other issues. Your last comment was focused on the columbarium, and I can tell you that is part of the master plan, and there is a lot of pre-work going on right now. You're not seeing it, but there's preparation work, and I believe there's a real activation plan that really kicks into full gear in 2018 to get that columbarium in place. We've heard loud and clear that veterans have been waiting far too long for a dignified place to be as their final resting place, and the columbarium is an important piece of this plan.
Just a quick follow-up on some of the things that have been said. You know, this campus has the opportunity to provide not just services, but lots and lots of opportunities, and some of those opportunities would be recreational activities. So we see it not only as a place that will be community for those that live on the campus, but as a magnet to bring veterans from all over the community to be together, and eventually, if they need help, to feel more comfortable seeking help at the VA. So we're truly trying with this campus to reverse the dynamic between veteran and VA, which is strange. It's, you know, look at the newspapers. Look at how this campus has been used for a long period of time. We have an opportunity right now to reverse that dynamic, bring veterans to the campus to get help. And recreation and other opportunities is a big part of that strategy.
My name is Francisco Juarez. I'm a native of Santa Monica. And I'm a veteran, and I would remind all of you that plan to access the website where you can ask questions and supply input. I would also like you to know that there are veterans that are questioning the foundation of this so-called master plan. We call it a settlement plan. This settlement plan actually reduces the footprint that at one time was 696 acres. Now it's 388 acres, and after this it'll be 387 acres. This settlement plan will allow leases that were found to be void by a federal court judge to continue controlling property. Now, all of a sudden, they're going to become service providers because they're providing recreational facilities. Well, they're both of the main ones are providing recreational facilities all of a sudden, and we don't know how much analysis went into just looking at the ground itself and what can be reused once Brentwood School leaves, or once UCLA leaves, or once the Salvation Army non-veteran residents leaves. I don't think any of that was done. Those were actually set aside, not looked at. And what veterans that I represent want you to know is that you don't want to rush into and slam dunk and rubber stamp a plan of this magnitude. This is the biggest and busiest VA facility in the nation. And to approve the first draft of the preliminary plan is kind of absurd when you have veterans that are bringing these points to light and they're being ignored. So what we need to do is ask you to help us. Help us by visiting this website and ask the question. Number one, Secretary McDonald, if you're going to act in good faith with us, then why have you already asked the House Committee on Veterans Affairs to endorse this plan? Why are you providing input if it's already going to be endorsed? That doesn't sound right. So there's three things that I want you to remember when you visit this website. Number one, it reduces the footprint. We should be going back after our 696 acres. Number two, it allows interlopers to continue to control land. And number three, it totally ignores the points that veteran advocates have brought up before this table in front of you here. So what we're asking is a sensible approach and a little reserve, if you will. There's nothing wrong with asking the questions. So we would appreciate you doing that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and
So,
I want to.
website you want us to form our opinions on. Thank you.
So one of the things that's been critical to the plan is the veteran voice. And there's been a tremendous amount of time to get that voice. Secretary had even acknowledged that when the plan was done and formed for the first time in its entirety, that more time was needed by the community to comment. It's very clear that what we're talking about here with VA is an opportunity for a new day in how VA operates, and that VA has to be in the community with the community. Our veterans fought to serve those communities and the homes in those communities. They deserve a home, and they deserve the opportunity to have the resources on that campus that meet their needs today as well as tomorrow. That's what the plan is focused on. The details will continue to evolve. It's been made clear that the plan is a living, breathing document that needs to be updated. Right now, there's over 400 comments that have come in to the master planning registry site. We will address those comments. Even if they don't directly relate to the plan, we will still address those comments and direct them back to the medical center, whether that's related to an operating plan or a strategic plan. The veteran voice has been important throughout this process. We've traveled throughout the communities from the moment this plan was announced to get feedback, to get input, and what we promise is that will continue as we go forward. It doesn't end on December 7th. We're talking about a new way where VA will be working in the community with the community to end not only veteran homelessness, but to ensure that all veterans get the health care they need and deserve, and that this campus become the 21st century healthcare facility and home that it's capable of being.
Excuse me, sir. Are you working with these people who are veterans?
Yes, he's been at the meetings, he's given feedback. There have been disagreements. We welcome different opinions and include them, and his voice has the same voice as every other veteran out there. Absolutely. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, first I want to say that what I've seen at the transitional housing on the campus is not working. Right now, you mentioned 900. Well, we know there's a lot more veterans right now today on the streets than there is. So what is your immediate plans to get these veterans into housing? And programs that work, because I've been on the campus and I've communicated with a lot of these veterans, and the programs that are on the campus are not 100%, they're not, maybe about 40%. So I'm just curious, what's the immediate plan now, because you have veterans all around that area that maybe we could put on the campus and let them live homelessly on the campus.
So let me just clarify, the 700 to 900 units that we're talking about are permanent housings. They're homes. Right now, all that's on the campus is transitional housing or short-term treatment programs. There is no permanent housing on the campus. We need the legislative authority to allow us to put that on the campus. With respect to what we're doing right now, I want to mention that we are actively engaged with communities in outreach. We're using transitional housing, we're using bridge housing. We have a program called Supportive Services for Veterans Families that help both prevent homelessness and rapidly reconnect veterans back to housing, all done in the community with partners focused on getting the veteran reconnected to their communities. I want my colleague here, Todd, to talk a moment or two about HUD-VASH, but currently we have close to 6,000 vouchers that have been awarded to the Greater Los Angeles VA Medical Center to help connect our most needy, vulnerable veterans to housing in the community. That will all continue. We don't see this as an either or. The plan is really all about choice, and veterans need a choice to either live in the communities and the neighborhoods that they might have grown up in or that they have supports in. So we're doing that along with trying to develop the campus for the target population that Heidi talked about. But better to hear this from one of the providers that's actually out there working with us so that you can kind of get a sense of what's happening on a day-to-day basis.
I'm Todd Lipka, and I'm the CEO for Step Up on Second. I apologize for my tardiness. So we're based right here in Santa Monica. We're on 2nd Street, but we work with veterans across all of Los Angeles County. And we're one of many organizations that contracts with the VA because the VA recognizes they can't solve homelessness among veterans themselves. So we're a very experienced street-based organization. And so we've been contracting and working with the VA for the past several years, past 4 years as a matter of fact, to target the most chronically homeless veterans living in the parks, under the freeway bridges and other areas. Typically the veterans who are not going into the VA necessarily for services because they've been homeless for so long. Veterans have been homeless for decades in some cases, and Vietnam War veterans who have been struggling for a long time. And for us, since we're a mental health service provider, many of these individuals have trauma or a full-blown mental illness. So the VA has been very collaborative in partnering not only with Step Up, but many other organizations throughout the county. So we go out and engage veterans on the street, and we have a VASH voucher, and those work very, very well. We have an intensive service program. So our staff, which also has veterans, work with the homeless veterans, engage them on the street. We pair them with the voucher, and it's really a very individualized program because every veteran is unique in terms of their situation and what they want. Some veterans want to live in the exact same community that they are homeless in. Other veterans want to live in other communities, might be their community of origin or some other community. So our staff literally travel around the county to work with each veteran to meet them where they are on the street, develop a relationship, connect them into the VA for service, pair them with a voucher, find a landlord who's willing to take the voucher, and then move them into that housing and provide them intensive post-housing support and connect them in with the VA for services as well. To date, over the past year, we placed 100 veterans in housing, and we expect to do over the next 6 months another 50 veterans. So this program, and if you read the plan, there's a lot of references on the housing side to housing first and permanent supportive housing. So these are terms that are very familiar in my industry. They're national adopted standards, they're evidence-based practices that we know work, and that work not only with veterans but other chronically homeless individuals. The Housing First model is just as I say, you engage the veteran on the street, and in most cases then move them right into an apartment. And veterans succeed at an extremely high rate in that housing. So we know that in the Housing First model, even veterans who've been on the street for decades simply want housing. And as Vince said, the way you address homelessness is by providing a home. And the permanent supportive housing is once they move into housing, you infuse it with intensive services, and you also see in the plan that common theme of community. It's all about not only on the VA campus, but in scattered site in the community if a veteran has an apartment. You create that sense of community by connecting them back into other veterans, into the VA, and into the neighborhood that they're in. And this has been demonstrated to work, not only with our program over the past many years, but across the nation with veterans and other homeless individuals. It just simply works. And this is the approach the VA is taking, and it's really quite effective in getting vouchers into the hands of homeless veterans and finding units in the community to solve homelessness.
I want to get back to an earlier question about the rate of change. I worked in the VA for over a decade as a psychiatrist and a mental health chief, and I can speak freely now about the VA because I don't work there. It's a little easier. There's no one here that doesn't want things to move more quickly. That said, what we've seen here over the past year since this settlement is remarkable. The VA has hired over 100 new staff for the homeless program. The outreach to homeless veterans has doubled. a significant amount of that low demand, low barrier bridge. Temporary housing has been formed both on the campus, in the community, to engage veterans in real time, get them off the street and into a dignified environment that's safe and where they can be triaged. In addition, things have happened with the VA now partnering with the county, with the city, that are expediting the process. So these HUD-VASH vouchers that we're talking about, these used to take months to get to a veteran, and now that's happening in real time. So a veteran's engaged, and literally on the same day, sometimes they can get a voucher. It's very difficult to be patient with this process, and I don't think government really is well known for being efficient anywhere on the planet. Certainly not here. No offense, sir. But I say that because it's hard in the midst of this to maintain, to feel a sense of accomplishment and be encouraged. But what's happening here is transformational. We have a secretary that's defining a new day. He sent out, one of the finest people in the entire VA to oversee this effort, and things are happening. And this is an American collective issue, the well-being of our veterans. And what you can do in the community now is participate by providing comments, and do that in the very near future. And be supportive as things go ahead. And as you may have seen in the slide, there will be additional opportunities to inform the process and guide the process. And the more stakeholders we get, the more folks are going to be accounted for and served by this sacred property.
Good evening. My name is Fred Flores. I worked for a congressman for 23 years, and I retired. I worked very hand in hand with the VA here out in West LA. I'm Commissioner for Veteran Affairs for the county. I'm a veteran. And during those 22 years, I had to behave, and because I worked for a politician, I had to take your side. Now that I'm a veteran and I don't have to worry about a politician's paycheck or my paycheck, I can now speak openly about what I see. And what I feel and see now, as a veteran sitting in those long waiting lines and long waiting rooms out there at Sepulveda, and when I have to come over here to West LA, is that we have no voice. We really don't. This young man, this man over here that spoke up a little while ago, how you doing, sweetie?
Great.
It's been fun being retired. She worked for another congressman. And that's for another one. Is that there's no voice. You mean you open the door and you say, we want to do this for you and work with you, but what veteran is sitting at the table and contributing to the decisions being made? Yes, you said input's there, but we're not really having a voice out there. When we have to sit in a waiting room for 2.5 hours to be seen, I think we earned that voice to be made in this master plan. I think, and that's either clinic. So I think that you need to reevaluate who's given the opportunity to sit at this table and make decisions of what's going to happen here in our facility. Like I said, when I worked for a congressman, I behaved and took your side. It was the right thing to do. It was the proper thing to do. We had to listen to our constituents. Sure, we advocated for our veterans that they needed to get the services. But now that I get to sit there in those long lines, and my hat's off, I'm not a member of any congressional staff, or I'm not doing anything, I sit there and I feel it for the real part of being a veteran. I don't think we want to be disrespectful to your process. All we were asking for is a real legitimate say in what's happening here. I was part of some of these things that went on here because the boss wanted it done. I worked hand in hand with her boss for some of the things that we did. And it was to benefit the veterans, which we were told, but it didn't get done. So all I'm asking you is to consider what we're saying is give us a real voice at the table when you make these decisions. Thank you.
I just appreciate those comments, and I think that that's a big part of the whole cultural transformation is for veterans to take back their land and their agency over time. What I can tell you through Vets Advocacy, which is the nonprofit.
Let me be clear. We don't want to take back. We want to be part of. key here.
It's a balance. I agree with you.
We're not being hostile, and those words that when people say we want things back, it makes us veterans look lazy and crazy and hostile, and that's not the key here. The key is give us a chance to say something at the decision table, and we're not getting it. We're not getting it. That's my point. That's key here. We don't want to take back. We want what was already here for us. That's it. Nothing more. We're not asking for the Taj Mahal here in Brentwood. Maybe Brentwood's asking for the Taj Mahal, but we're not.
Wait, sir, what I wanted to say is that there's actually a group of veterans that are essentially an advocacy platoon that's forming. If you'd like to be put in touch with some of these veterans, I'd be happy to do that. I believe one of them, Christine, there she is. Christine Hess is one of the leaders of that group, and the idea there is actually to help develop that strong voice, and I think your voice is a very strong one, and it may be an opportunity for you to help move the needle.
Yeah, and I, well,
Look, I haven't heard anything go out to Poland in the Valley for vets. Christine's representing an area that's been neglected for years, and I'm glad she has that voice. But for years, they had no clinic out there until the director went out and met with a bunch of veterans out there, and they decided to put a clinic in East LA. So it took things like that to happen, and I was involved with all that. I don't see anybody going out to the Valley and talking to a facility that feels neglected already.
So we're going to be the first to acknowledge more needs to be done, and the veterans must have a seat at the table, and you have to have a voice. And this process is been about restoring that veteran voice, and we agree it wasn't there. I mean, we've had meetings. We have a new network director, and one of the things when we met with veteran service organizations, they talked to us about, meetings just stopped. Elected officials, meetings just stopped. That's going to stop. There's going to be meetings like this on a regular basis, meetings like we did in the summer where we did have a town hall meeting in Sepulveda, and we did listen to the veterans there, and we did make changes. We've added services. We will continue to do that. You have to be a vital part of your health care, and we have to be better listeners, and that's kind of what Secretary has been about. That's what this process has been about. That's why we're here tonight. But it has to be reestablished. Trust was broken, and trust has to be restored through changes of behavior that people see. And part of the change has to be us doing a better job listening to the veteran. We can't say, it's your VA or my VA if you're not there. And we fully support what you're saying. So thank you for saying it. That's somebody.
Hi, my name's David Ewan. It seems to me that there's, what you hear voiced is plenty of mistrust in all directions. And so I'm wondering if it seems to me when I read the plan, what I'm wondering is our rules of engagement part of the plan, developing rules of engagement for how you engage with the veterans community, how you will engage with the community surrounding the campus and so forth. There's going to be, I hear a lot of stuff about, well, we got to keep various things out of the campus, but at the same time, you're going to need a lot of things brought to the campus from outside. There's going to have to be engagement with businesses, with governments, and so forth. And so how do you set something up to make sure that the same kinds of abuses don't happen, that there's a process that fosters, a healthy community there?
Yeah, I think, and they're great points, thank you for making them. I think, and this is just my humble opinion, I think in part VA got in trouble because it did get closed off and isolated, and the community and the veteran wasn't fully engaged, and there wasn't ongoing dialogue, and there wasn't an openness, and there wasn't new energy coming from the community into VA, and those things need to change. It's not always articulated in a master plan, but we've been talking as the plan continues to develop and evolve. There needs to be a bridge, and there then needs to be these operational issues and these coordinated issues that sort of get put in place to support the physical changes that get articulated in the plan. And so, feedback and meetings, have been about, more opportunities for veterans to be sitting with the directors and sitting with leaders to kind of say, this is what we see as the priority. This is what we need. This is the gaps. Tell us what data you're seeing. Why are these decisions being made? So that there's a more open and ongoing dialogue. One of the things that Bob approved in GLA is a new administrative structure so that there is time for the leadership to be more engaged with the community. There's going to be not only a new executive medical center director, but there will be a director solely responsible for helping to make sure services in the community, whether they be at Sepulveda or Oxnard or wherever, is that there's appropriate staffing, leadership, planning, and that's done in the community and with the community, and having the community and the veteran in that community giving feedback for what they want, how they want it, and how it can be best coordinated. So you're going to see those changes. The use of the land is going to have a separate leader who will work on the land use agreements as well as an exclusive focus on community engagement and reintegration. So we are changing structures. We're going to be looking at processes for better engagement with veteran service organizations, with veterans, with neighbors, with businesses, all to give feedback so that this becomes the vibrant community it's capable of being.
The plan doesn't drill down to this level yet, but one of my inputs as a non-VA person and having done housing for veterans and non-veterans is in our buildings here in Santa Monica, we establish a structure for input by stakeholders. And so Step Up has in each of our buildings what we call a tenant advisory committee, and this would be part of my input, part of the land use plan as we progress, is that we're calling out hundreds, almost 1,000 units of permanent housing on the grounds, and that we develop a structure of a clear structure of elected leadership within those housed to represent the voice of veterans who are housed. And we can do similar things in the bridge housing and transitional housing so that we're ensuring structurally there's input from those utilizers of the service to provide to leadership through a formalized mechanism. In our buildings, we have the tenant advisory committee, so the tenants actually elect their own leaders, a chair and a vice chair, and they're responsible for gathering input from the tenants and then bringing that forward to a bigger body. So in this case, there are many buildings that are involved that will be converted to permanent housing. So I think it's very feasible, and this would be part of the input moving forward, is to create that internal structure that's actually a formalized way to represent stakeholder and participant input in the decision-making process.
Yeah, I'm Chris Bach. I'm chair of Meals on Wheels, County of LA Meals on Wheels Association, and I'm also the executive director of Meals on Wheels here in Santa Monica. And for over 2 years, we've attempted to work with the VA to supply, just get references. We're not asking for money. We're not asking for space. We're going to simply refer veterans to us. In 2 years, we've received probably half a dozen. And it's the same situation out in the Valley where, because I'm chair of the County of LA Meals on Wheels Association, Vic identified a building on the Sepulveda campus that was empty. It was a cafeteria, had a kitchen. They volunteered, they offered to come into that building, supply staff, supply food, just to be allowed to serve. Nothing happened. And I don't really want to get into a litany of the past, but tell me, in Zone 2, what's the plan to engage the community and community organizations to help veterans? Because we are willing to do that.
So there's many things underway in that zone, that's going to be focused on coordination. I can tell you one of them right now is a welcome center that was established for the homeless veterans. It's a one-stop drop-in. One of the signs that things are changing for VA is that it's no longer just VA doing that. There are community groups and partners working with us in that center. We've reached out to the community and talked about meals being brought to support the veterans that come to that center. We can connect you tonight to Mr. Bockelman to kind of make sure that there is that type of opportunity, not only for the homeless and disadvantaged veterans, but for the aging veterans. I think, going forward, what we've been trying to be clear about in the plan and in all the communications we had with you, and you heard Todd say it earlier, it really is about VA now being in the community with the community. We're not going to end veteran homelessness if we weren't. Part of why we're behind the way we are is that wasn't happening. As that started to happen, you're starting to see these changes. We're not going to deny that at times it's been difficult to access. When we've traveled around, we've heard repeatedly some of the challenges that people wanting to help veterans couldn't find their way to find somebody to help the veterans. There wasn't somebody there on our side that sort of said, here's how you do it. We're changing that. We're going to have those things in place, and you're beginning to see signs. But there has to be more of that, not only on the campus, but throughout the community. And so we are going to be taking you up on these offers. We will be following up, and we will be making those kind of changes, because that's what's really going to be needed to change how veterans feel welcome back in the communities that they serve. Pardon me? It's already beginning to happen. So for instance, I just gave an example of the Welcome Center, where we have community groups in there now working with our veterans on a daily basis, providing beds for them, connecting them to housing, connecting them to other services, looking at job opportunities. We've had St. Joseph's, who's been a part of our teams, willing to come and work on cooking and having food and having additional food made available for veterans that are getting services in there. Those things are underway now, and they're only going to continue to grow as we advance the changes in leadership and in practice at that VA, and when we begin to more completely implement the plan as it goes forward.
We are welcoming
So I'm sorry.
We want to take care of our vets.
In response to the gentleman, I think the veterans do have an opportunity for input, and tonight is one of those opportunities. As a veteran, I have three things to say about the draft plan. First of all, it needs to include much more housing. 700 to 900 units is far short from the 4,000 units that were discussed during the workshops over the summer. I know that wasn't a commitment. That was the number that was bandied about. Jeff Hall, the editor of the Brentwood News, the Brentwood community newspaper, wrote an editorial in August, and he recommended 5,000 units as a starting place. So I think it needs a lot more units. Secondly, the biggest problem with the draft master plan is that there is no timeline. It doesn't talk in terms of, here's what we need to do in the first year, here's what we need to do in the first 3 years, here's what we need to do in the next 5 years. And I think that's an essential element for a master plan. I recognize that what actually gets built is going to depend in some measure on what can be funded. But I think that a master plan ought to lay out phases of development and target timelines for those phases of development. The timeline of 2015, the settlement was in January. The master planning firm, HOK, was introduced in June. The plan was submitted to the VA in October, and here we are, the 1st of December. That schedule is both too long and too short. It's too long for the homeless veterans out on the street. I mean, look, next month, let's set up a tent city in the Getty parking lot. In 1975, I volunteered when thousands of Vietnamese refugees were brought to the United States, and the government set up tent housing at Camp Pendleton. We could do that for the homeless veterans. On the other hand, when you're talking about a long-term plan for a 388-acre campus, it shouldn't be done in the course of 8 or 10 months. Let's take the plan that we have now, the HOK plan. That's a good starting point. Let's reevaluate it 12 months down the line. Let's reevaluate it again 3 years down the line. And thirdly, in the course of that reevaluation, the master plan needs to include treatment and service programs as well as the physical development of buildings. I don't criticize HOK because their master plan focuses on physical development. They're a planning firm, that's what they do. But if we set up a schedule of reevaluation 12 months, 36 months, 5 years down the line, then the VA itself can get involved in the development of the plan to include service and treatment programs in combination with the physical development of the campus and the development of buildings.
So Terrence, I can tell you that your comments are similar to others, particularly with respect to a timeline and sort of how does it get phased in. The numbers have been talked about. That was focused on, what the perceived gap was because there's also housing in the community. What was the target population? We continue to look at those numbers. We will continue to update those numbers. And that there's always been the notion that this does need to be a living, breathing document that just can't sit on the shelf. We have to be reevaluating it on a fairly continuous basis. Regarding services, you're right, the instructions to HOK was to focus on the physical environment and the structures, and that's what they did. There will be other opportunities to talk about services, but some of the feedback has been to at least lay out what services are being projected in Zone 2 or whatever it ends up being called, so that folks have an idea of the scope and the opportunities that will be available to veterans on the campus beyond housing. Because if it's only housing, it's not going to be enough to be a vibrant community. So those feedbacks have been heard. There's active plans underway. We've been with the federal plan and with others around what's the appropriate housing environment for veterans. We believe that there are housing units out there in the community that have been underutilized, and every effort should be made to connect them to a more dignified, safer space. If you look at who the homeless veterans are, the majority are aging veterans. We have a significant number that are 55 or older. Close to 60% of our veterans that are homeless and that are chronically homeless fall into that category. They need a warm, sheltered area with a roof over their head while we're working on permanent housing. And that's the standard we're holding ourselves to. That's what we're pushing for. That's what we're doing in partnership with the community to make sure that we get them home, that we get them safe, and we do that in a dignified way that honors their service. And that's what we've been pushing. That's why you've not seen tents. You've seen us take underutilized beds and use them for the housing for emergency or short-term housing until we can get them permanent housing. So I don't know if others want to comment, but thank you for that feedback, very helpful.
I was curious when Mr. Juarez mentioned that there were originally 696 acres and now there are 387. This map with the 4 zones, is that the 387 or the 696?
Well, the 388 is what that is, because that was the scope given based on what the VA was currently using when the plan was asked to be authorized. There's a history about what was also land that was part of what was originally donated. That went beyond the scope of this master plan. The plan was to focus on what VA was currently using and how that land could be revitalized. That was the 388.
So where are the other 300 acres?
So there's a variety of issues and questions about what the original deed looks like, and other aspects in the community that are thought to be on what was land originally donated to the veterans. That went beyond the scope of the master plan, and what we focused on and what HOK was charged to do was look at the 388 acres that VA was currently occupying and look at restoring and revitalizing those 388 acres.
Is it contiguous with the 388?
Some of it is, some of it is not. We can talk about that offline, but again, the charge was the focus on the 388.
Hello, my name's Andrew Carrillo. I can answer your question first. I'm a Carrillo. I'm also a Bandini. And Arcadia Bandini is the one who donated this 600 acres along with Senator Jones. And they also started Santa Monica. San Diego Freeway is a big part of it, okay? Because the original boundary was Sepulveda Boulevard. They donated this land in 1889. They tried to donate it a lot earlier, and the federal government took a long time just to accept the gift. It was originally for Civil War veterans, and by the time the federal government got around to accepting it, it was for Spanish-American War veterans. So the federal government has a long history of moving slowly on things. The land was originally for housing for veterans, to house homeless veterans. That was land that she owned. She owned a huge tracts of land. She was very land wealthy at the time. Fast forward, I mean, this was before the VA even got started. So the VA didn't get started until after World War I, when they took over the property. And then in the 1960s was when the primary focus of this property was changed from being a home to being a hospital. And I guess that was the need then. There are several of my distant cousins here, and very much involved in this, that we got involved, we got reconnected with our family heritage in the 1980s when the federal government came in, and they said this was under the Reagan administration, they wanted to get rid of excess federal property. And that whole area, zones 2, 3, and 4, were kind of deemed excess federal property, and they were going to get rid of that. Till our family all got together and said, well, if you're going to do that, you got to give it back to us. And that kind of squelched that. I wanted to just point out that recently, 4 years ago, some of my family got together and formed the Bandini Foundation. And currently, we were granted a lease to run the Heroes Golf Course there. And we've been running it ever since. We were not, there was a lawsuit that was instigated all of this, some of you may know, and we were not party of that lawsuit. We were not named as a group in that lawsuit because we are the only nonprofit organization that takes care of property on the VA that is exclusively for veterans. We have hired lots of veterans to come and work at our golf course to learn skills that they have taken out and gotten other jobs from at other golf courses or other landscaping businesses. And we have submitted a proposal to this master plan to expand on that. Because we're doing a very good job of training people veterans to work and providing these recreational services. So our organization, the Bandini Foundation, has submitted a proposal for this master plan to expand our scope and do more of this, because our family still wants to be here contributing to the veterans in this area. And I'm speaking mostly to you guys, because I want you to take a look at our proposal that's in that master plan. And also go to heroesgolfcourse.com and support us in supporting the veterans with the VA. So thank you. I just wanted to share that part of it. Thank you. Thank you.
So we just, as a time check, we're significantly over the allotted time. So I think we can take one or two more questions and then, make ourselves available, informally after the meeting.
Hi, everyone. I'm Christine. My question was, and I might have missed it, I'm sorry. When the VA's final draft master plan is submitted, where is that going?
So that goes to the secretary.
And then that's it? We don't have a chance for any more comments after that? Do we
No,
get to
again, what will happen once it goes to the secretary, he can tell us to either start to work on advancing it, which would take it through the NEPA and historical preservation environmental assessment process, which again will be open to additional feedback and comments. And then we would start to move toward a process of ongoing engagement for moving out of development into activation as it progresses through that NEPA. So the intent is different than what's been in the past. The intent going forward is an ongoing dialogue with the veterans, a constant check-in about where we are with the plan, what's working, what's not working, how do we adjust based on new information, new data, and new feedback from the veteran community. So no, it doesn't end there. There'll be continuous feedback, and that really in the structures that will be set up with the VA and with the new leadership, there's the intent to make sure that there is ongoing dialogue and that there is the ability to have the veteran voice listened to, heard, and acted on. So we got one more.
Yes, Ernest Cowell again. I just wanted to point out something which you're talking about, reach out and connection and so forth and so on. I had occasion to verify that indeed the meeting was here tonight. I called up the BA on the regular number at 478-3711. And surprisingly, I wasn't put on hold, and I talked to a young lady who was most charming and who tried her damnedest but couldn't give me the information whether there was a meeting or there wasn't a meeting. Finally, I said, connect me with the director's office. So I get up to some gentleman that worked up in that area, and he said, well, I don't know. I said, well, is the director there, assistant director? And they, no. I said, well, you had no idea whether there's a meeting tonight? No. So I request that the information be readily available when you call up and you ask for information, that the staff is aware of when and where these meetings are, and that they are capable of conveying that information, because it's just incongruent that, you're talking about communication, and yet when you call up to get information, there's no communication. So thank you very much.
And again, thank you for that feedback. And I can tell you, and the directors here, one of the things we talked about that's been a real shortcoming is our public affairs office and how we're communicating on a consistent basis with the veteran community. And that you're absolutely right. When you look at how other centers deal with this, you call, there's one place you get that kind of information. It's also available on the web pages, and that there's better communication. So we totally agree that that has to change, that has to get better, and people have to have information so they can participate. We're not going to argue that point at all. You're 100% on target. Thank you. Again, I apologize. We were well over, but we will be available after this to answer additional questions. I really thank everybody. I encourage folks to please give your feedback to the plan. It is close to 900 pages, but you can actually look at the executive summary. We actually would encourage you to do that. That's about 15 pages. And please give us your feedback. And thank you for being here. Right over you.
Where are you going?